Welcome. In this session, we will see how to migrate PostgreSQL database from on-premises, or in our case, it is on EC2 instance, to RDS instance, which is having the PostgreSQL. So these steps are already mentioned over here. So what we are going to do, we are going to follow all these steps. So what we are going to do database migration services tool, which is there in your AWS services, and we will create a database of PostgreSQL on EC2, and we will migrate it from EC2 to RDS. So these are the high level steps which we are going to perform. First of the step which we are going to do is we are going to launch an EC2 instance. We will import some data, we'll prepare that instance. This is going to take roughly 5 to 6 minutes. Then we will go ahead and we will launch an RDS instance. And then finally, we will go ahead and launch the DMS instance. So what we will do is we will simultaneously open three consoles. So I've already logged into three. This is for our uh, EC2 dashboard. Let's make this as RDS and one for DMS. Just to save some time, we will try to launch them one after the other. So I have one instance which is running. I'll stop this. The entire demo is going to take roughly an hour, so just be patient when we are going to do this. The first thing which I'm going to do is I'm going to launch an instance on EC2. This will be RHEL, so just say RHEL. Everything by default, nothing specific we are going to choose. What I want at this point of time is from my local system, I just wanted to connect, and for port number 5432, I'll just allow my IP and we'll just launch it. Since morning, there has been some issue related to, I'll just say EC2, and today's date is 27. While this is being initiated, we will go to the RDS and we will launch one RDS instance. The one which I already have it, I'll just go ahead and delete this. Okay, this is getting deleted. In the meantime, let's go ahead and create the database in RDS for PostgreSQL. We'll go with the standard create and we will choose PostgreSQL. Let's select the latest one, which is 13.4. We will take it for dev and test. We don't want a very heavy machine. And just the database identifier will just say database 2, the default one I'm going to take. And for the master username, we have Postgre, and let's say the password as password only. Instance class will include some previous generation as well. And let's select 2 GB RAM, 2 virtual CPU. That is more than sufficient for this demo. We won't need storage auto scaling. We don't also need a standby. We'll go with the normal connectivity, with this the default one, but we want the public access. And we will go with the default one. Additional configuration, we don't want anything. This is going to cost you monthly around $40 or so. I'll just say create database. And this is the database which is getting created. The previous one is getting deleted. I used it in some other demo. Okay, the third thing which we will do is let's go ahead and launch a DMS instance. So basically it is the replication instance which is going to do all work. Let's go ahead and we will say replication demo from EC2 to RDS. Give some nomenclature so that you can understand what it is. Instance class, let's make it 2 CPUs and 2 GB of RAM. 50 GB is more than sufficient. We want it publicly accessible. We don't want it multi-AZ. So we just want a single AZ. And let's go with the default to VPC. In security point of view, nothing specific we don't want. And we don't want any minor upgrade which is going to happen during this demo. We are not going to tag it, just go ahead and create it. So we have EC2 instance, which should be, okay, this is up. Let's go ahead and launch the EC2 instance. We'll go to MovaXterm, which is a good GUI tool. Go to advanced SSH settings, remote host. Here you mention EC2-user and use private key, EC2 keys, and this should work now. Okay, we are able to log in now, and let's perform the steps which is for the EC2 instance. The first step is download the PostgreSQL 13 and install it. I'm just going to copy and paste all the components in one shot. This is going to take probably a couple of minutes, and we will wait during this time, or we can go ahead and do some settings. But this is the step which is going to take most of the time. Okay, this is getting launched and the binaries are getting downloaded. They will be installed. And okay, let's see what is going to happen next. We have to disable the SE Linux. So this should not take more time. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay. I just wanted to do it so that when you practice it yourself, you should be able to see, you should be able to do it end to end. So this is the first step which we have done. Let's go ahead and stop if there is any firewall which may create the trouble during the configuration and further on. Now we are going to disable the SE Linux. We are going to make sure that enforcing is set to disabled. This is done. Now the next step, enable the sudo access for PostgreOS user. Just copy and paste all this so that you don't have the issues for prompting the password for the Postgre. Now enable the remote access for Postgre database user, and using the PSQL. Now let's set the listen address to star. This is done. The next thing is let's go ahead and restart your Postgre instance. This is done. Now log into PSQL and set the password of Postgre role. This will be used when you are trying to connect. This is also done. The next thing is you have to add the IP address of the remote host to hba.conf, and here you have to add the IP address of your local system and the replication instance. This is my IP address. I'll add I'll put it over here in case I wanted to connect from my local system. I'll put this detail. And one more thing I have to do is I have to add the IP address of the replication instance over here. And what I will do is I'll go to the replication instance, just click it over here, and there will be some public IP. There's the, okay, let's take the private IP. That is what it is going to prompt for. I've added over here. I'll tell you why we are doing this. Otherwise, it will not going to allow you. Okay, this is done. Now let's go to the next step, wherein we are going to restart the Postgre services on EC2 instance. This is also done. Now let's reboot the instance. This may take a minute or so. Once it is done, we will SCP the data, DVD rental data from my system to the EC2 instance that will be used for the migration purpose. You might have seen these steps multiple times, but we wanted to do it end-to-end migration. That's why we are looking for this. Let's see what is the status. Okay, this seems to have got rebooted. Mhm. Okay, we are able to log in now. Now what we will do is using WinSCP, we are going to transfer the DVD rental database, which is a dump in my system. Just edit it and take the public hostname from here. We have mentioned it over here. Save login. Yes. This is my in system. Okay, and we will transfer it to the /tmp. Okay, let's go to /tmp. Just change the ownership. And now sudo install unzip will not be there. That's why we are downloading it. Once it is downloaded, we will just unzip it. So those who have not done the import part also, they can follow this. Let's go to the next step wherein we will create a DVD rental database and we will import it. So we'll say sudo su space minus postgre. And we'll say create DVD rental. And now we will import the dump which we have using the pg restore. cd/tmp sudo unzip. I think we haven't unzipped it so far. Okay, this is done. Now let's fire the import. Okay. Now you will see the database is there. So this is the first step wherein we have prepared our system and our system is ready. So we have the DVD rental database. So if you switch to this, you should be able to see some 15 tables. And that is what we are trying to migrate from local system, which is EC2 instance, to your RDS. The first part is done. Now the next part is launch RDS and allow connectivity with EC2 instance. So you have to make sure that security groups are properly mentioned. So we'll say allow incoming traffic from AWS DMS replication instance IP address. So we will let's go to the security group of EC2 and we will add the DMS IP address. And let's go to add rule, go to the DMS, and inside that you will be able to see its IP address. So this is the IP address. Just copy it, and we want it to communicate over PostgreSQL and PostgreSQL. Let's add the other IP address also, which is the public IP, though it is going to talk on the internal IP address, which is the private IP address. But let's do it for this demo. This is done. Okay, we have launched the RDS. We have modified the allow incoming traffic from AWS DMS instance IP address. So we should have done it for the RDS also. Let's go to the RDS. This is the RDS, and this is the security group. And we'll say edit. And here we will add the PostgreSQL. This is the private IP address, and this is your public one. Save rules. This is done. We have launched the DMS instance also. And now let's create the source and target endpoint. Let's go to the DMS dashboard, go to the endpoints, and here we are going to create the endpoint. Source endpoint, that is for the EC2 instance. So we'll say it is source EC2 where PostgreSQL is installed, which is version 13. Choose the engine. Engine is PostgreSQL. We'll provide the access details manually. Let's go to the EC2 instance. And this is the public DNS. So this is the server name. Port is 5432. Username is Postgre. Password is password only. Database name is Postgre. Endpoint settings, nothing from here. KMS keys we haven't used. Nothing in tags. Test. Okay, the final step is we'll create the endpoint and then we will test it. I'll do the test connection. If everything is fine, it is going to show you the success. If there is any problem, it will give you some hint what it may be, either the password wrong or there is some connectivity issue. Once it is done, we will go to the RDS and we will create the endpoint for that. Let's see how it goes. Hardly it is going to take a minute or so. So let's wait for that time. Simultaneously, we can create the endpoint for uh, the target as well. Uh, let's see. Let's go ahead and let's create. We'll say create endpoint. We'll go to the target endpoint, select it as RDS only. This is database 2. Um, it has taken everything other than the password. Password we will say it was basic password only. Database name. Okay, it should be DVD rental. I think it was Postgre. Okay, let's create the first one. I believe it is going to error out. I should have given the name of, okay, modify. What we had used is in database name we used as DVD rental in pg_hba.conf. I will show you where we have used it. That's why it is going to show us the error. This is the, we have used DVD rental in pg_hba.conf. Okay, we made the change. We are saving it. Yeah, that's the error it has shown. And obviously this should have shown to us. And sorry, and this is working now. This should show, other than password, it should not show any error if I haven't mentioned the correct password. Let us see how it is showing. This is successful. Now let's go to the other endpoint, which is the target one. And over here, let's say test connection. If this goes fine, most of the things are done now. Handling the security group properly, it is going to be one of the most important thing. Other than this, there should not be any issues at all. So how do you handle the security group if you know the connection is going to where, coming from where? If you have those logic built in, then it is, you can see that this is also successful. So everything is successful. Now this is the final step wherein we are saying, okay, let's migrate the data, which is one time. We are not going to use the CDC, which has some prerequisites. So we will see that in some other. So finally, let's say migrate Postgre to RDS using DMS. Again, this is a one word. Maybe there is some spelling mistakes also. But that's fine. Replication instance, it is just one, so it is going to pick source. We have source EC2 only. Target, we have database 2, which is RDS instance. We are just saying migrate existing data. And that's it. We don't want to migrate uh, the data changes. That requires some prerequisite. But and one of the things which we have to do is the how do you want it to map the tables? We will see that as well. So selection rule will say migrate everything. Okay, so choose a schema. Okay, so we are just selecting everything. So we are doing full load. We are not doing the uh, CDC, which is continuous data capture, but that can also be included depending upon what you are selecting. There's a straightforward scenario, so nothing very special in this. This is great to have it. Okay, full load created successfully, and this will show. Starting database migration task. The task is now getting created, so it should show us the table, but it is not showing. Let's see. The connection was fine. Okay, now it is showing. Running full load. The table statistics, it will show what all table. Okay, these are the 15 tables which are present in our source public schema under DVD rental database. So it has picked up all the 15 databases. And this is, we are saying move everything, percentage. So this should show anytime like, okay, load is complete. You can see the schema name, the table name, load status, table completed, total number of rows. We have not done the validation, otherwise it could have shown you the validation status as well. These are the tables which have been converted or loaded from source to the target environment. If you wanted to see the details, what you can do is you can go to RDS. Let's go to the RDS. Not sure if I have given access to my local system. Let's go to here and this is your endpoint. And since it is already showing, so this should be successful. There's no point there is any issue with that. I just wanted to make sure that it has migrated it perfectly fine. I should have launched in advance so that it doesn't take time, but that's fine. Let me cross check and see if the security group has my IP of the system. There's dynamic IP, so this keeps on changing. Okay, it was not there. So let's go back to the RDS again. So I believe in total, this entire demo is, if you perform yourself, it is not going to take more than 45 minutes, starting everything from scratch. This is the endpoint, so I'll just copy and paste. This is the database in RDS. You can see these are the 15 tables. Since I used the Postgre, it got transferred over here. So if you wanted to move it from here to somewhere else, you can do that. But this is how we have done it. So our one-time load migration is completed using the database migration services. So we will just go through it once again. So what we have used is database migration services. We have migrated PostgreSQL sample database DVD rental, and we migrated it to RDS in PostgreSQL. We did everything from the beginning. We launched an EC2 instance. We imported the sample database. We disabled the CLinux, and then we enabled the remote access. And the important part is this is very, very important. We just need to make sure that this part is taken care. In hba.conf, I mentioned the IP address of my local system so that I can check it. Also, the IP address of the replication instance, who is going to log in into this and who is going to pick up the data, the information. So I mentioned the database name, which is going to be used, and the role. So those things are mentioned over. So this is very, very important. Then, then what we did is we imported a sample database of Postgre of DVD until, which is 15 MB in size. Then we launched an RDS instance. I added the IP address of my system, which is dynamic in nature. And then I added the incoming traffic from the DMS IP. And then we finally launched the DMS, which is just a replication instance. We just saved the IP address so that it is useful when you are updating the security group. This is the most important step, which is creating the source and the target endpoints, wherein when I am saying an endpoint, it picks up the details of the host name, the master username, the password, and the database which it is going to log in. So this should be successful. If your security groups are not properly managed, it is going to create a lot of problem. So just make sure that security groups are properly managed. And finally, we launched the migration task. And what we did is we did one-time migration, which is like your pg underscore dump. We haven't done the continuous data capture. We can do that, but before that there are some prerequisites that needs to be taken care, and that's how it is. So it is very straightforward. There is no challenges in that. Just you have to make sure that you properly manage the security groups. I hope this is going to help.